Welcome back, everybody. Today we're taking a deep dive into, well, climate activism. But with a twist.
A twist.
Yeah. We're going to Pakistan
Hmm.
to explore, get this, formal training for climate activists.
Really?
Yeah. It's not something you see every day, is it?
Not really. No, it's pretty unique, actually. Especially when you think about the serious climate challenges that Pakistan is up against.
Right. Exactly. It's almost like activism is finally getting its own sort of like curriculum.
Like it's becoming a real profession.
Yeah. So our mission today is to really understand how this is all unfolding, how's it working? What does it mean for, well, the future of climate action? And not just in Pakistan, but, maybe even globally.
Yeah, it's a really interesting case study, and especially because, activism traditionally hasn't been very structured.
No, it's always been this, as they say, learn on the job kind of thing.
Exactly, yeah. Figure it out as you go along. But you know what? That can be, well, as our source, the learning curve of activism, points out, pretty hit or miss.
Yeah, not always the most effective way to go about things.
Especially in a place like Pakistan. I mean, it's a complex political landscape, and, without that expertise, it can have some real consequences.
I can imagine. So let's get into it. The activism scene in Pakistan. The source that we have, it paints this picture of how things have kind of evolved over time. It seems that environmental activism really started gaining traction back in the late 1990s.
Yeah.
With the introduction of, well, some new environmental laws.
Yeah, that seems to have been a catalyst, but it wasn't all smooth sailing from there, was it?
No.
No, I mean, while some activists made a real impact, there were others who, they engaged in some pretty unethical practices.
Oh.
Yeah, and that, as you can imagine, really damaged the reputation of the field.
It's like taking 2 steps forward and then a giant leap back.
Yeah. It was a setback, for sure. But things started to change again, though, in the 2010s.
Okay.
With the rise of climate activism.
The new wave.
Exactly. Driven by social media and this new generation of activists.
Right. So what was different about this new generation?
Well, for one thing, they often came from more privileged backgrounds. They had access to higher education. And they brought a very different approach to activism. The source calls it supply-side environmentalism.
Supply-side environmentalism. Okay, I've never heard that before. What exactly does that mean?
So instead of the, traditional protests or direct action, they were focusing more on, well, influencing policymakers, working within the existing systems.
So it's more about strategic maneuvering than, say, organizing a big protest or something.
Exactly. Imagine them, like, collaborating with government agencies to push for stricter emissions regulations.
Oh, I see. That makes sense. But doesn't that also run the risk of kind of like, climate washing?
Right.
Where companies or individuals try to appear all eco-conscious but aren't actually taking any real action.
Yeah, that's definitely a concern. It's like a company might really promote its recycling program but still be using tons of unsustainable packaging. That's climate washing. It's something to definitely watch out for.
Yeah, it's like putting a green label on something without actually changing what's inside, right?
Exactly.
Tricky. But this is where things get really interesting.
Okay, tell me more.
Enter climate action skills.
What is that?
It's an online academy, and they're doing something totally unique in Pakistan.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
They're offering free and really in-depth training for people who want to be climate activists.
Wow, really? Free?
Free. Their whole mission, the whole point of it is to bridge this gap between, enthusiasm and actually making a difference, effective action.
That's amazing. That's so important.
Yeah, it's a big deal. And it sounds like they're really serious about the quality of the training. Our source mentions that they have this super rigorous selection process. Only 65 individuals were chosen out of a ton of applicants for their first group.
So it's competitive.
Yeah. And then, get this, a third of them actually dropped out.
Wow.
Because the program was so demanding.
So they're not messing around. It's the real deal.
No, they're not. It's not just some casual online course. This is serious stuff. Their curriculum is designed to, equip these activists with real practical skills, in-depth knowledge, the whole 9 yards.
Wow. So what kind of things do they cover?
Everything from the technical aspects of climate science to, practical things like how to plan a campaign, communication strategies, even fundraising.
It's like a climate activism boot camp.
Exactly. And the best part,
yeah,
this is the first program of its kind in Pakistan.
Wow, that's incredible. A real game changer.
It is. And what's really striking is that almost half of the graduates already had backgrounds in environmental sciences.
Really? So they already had a good foundation.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
They chose to, like, further hone their skills.
That's dedication.
It really is. It
Yeah.
really says something about their commitment. And it shows how the whole landscape of climate activism in Pakistan is changing.
It's evolving.
It is. This is all incredibly fascinating. We're seeing something special happen here.
It really does feel like a pivotal moment in Pakistan's climate movement.
It does.
It is a pivotal moment, yeah. And you know what's really inspiring is how this whole initiative, this whole thing, it really challenges that traditional model of activism, the one that relied so heavily on confrontation.
You mean things like protests and boycotts and that sort of thing?
Exactly, yeah. Those methods, I mean, they can be effective,
Sure.
but they can also be, divisive. And it seems like this new generation in Pakistan, they're really embracing a more collaborative approach, working within the system to make a change.
Yeah. It's like they're recognizing that tackling climate change, well, it requires a different strategy.
Yeah.
One that involves working with policymakers and institutions instead of always being against them.
Yes, absolutely. And that shift, that's really where climate action skills comes in. They saw that this new generation, well, they needed specific skills
Right.
and the knowledge to really pull off this more strategic approach.
It makes you wonder if we'll start seeing more programs like this, like climate action skills, popping up in other places, around the world.
I think it's definitely possible. I mean, think about it. If you want to create lasting change on any issue, well, you need people who are passionate, but they also need to understand the problem.
Right.
They have to be able to come up with effective strategies, right? That's
Yeah.
where training comes in.
It's like any other profession, isn't it? You wouldn't want someone to, I don't know, operate on you if they hadn't gone to medical school.
Exactly. Or be your lawyer if they'd just, read a few law books.
Right, exactly. So activism, especially when you're dealing with something as complicated as climate change, I mean, it shouldn't be any different, should it?
Exactly. And it seems like we're finally starting to see a shift in that direction. More and more people are realizing how important it is to have real expertise if you want to make social change.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe we're moving away from that image of, well, the activist as this passionate but maybe not very well-trained individual
Right.
and moving towards a more, I don't know, professionalized model.
It's a possibility. I mean, passion and dedication are still super important.
Oh, for sure.
But they're even more powerful, even better, when you combine them with knowledge and skills.
It's like you're amplifying the passion with some serious know-how,
Yeah.
which, brings us back to you, listener. What does all of this mean for you?
I think this story, this whole thing, it's a call to action. If you're passionate about something, anything, think about really investing in your own education. Get some training. The more you know, the more effective you can be.
Yeah, it's that old saying, right? Knowledge is power. But in this case, it's not just about you.
Yeah.
It's about, well, having the tools you need to make a real difference out there in the world.
Exactly. And what's so cool about climate action skills, what's so great, is that they're offering this training for free.
Yeah, that's huge. That's amazing. Wow. So money's not a barrier.
Exactly. Anyone who wants to make a difference, they can, no matter what their financial situation is.
It really levels the playing field, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. It shows how important it is to be inclusive in the climate movement. Like
Right.
they're saying, hey, we need everyone, so let's make sure everyone can get involved.
I love that. This has been, well, I don't know about you, but this has been a really inspiring conversation for me. Really makes you think. Before we wrap things up, is there one key takeaway, maybe one thought-provoking question you want to leave our listeners with today?
You know what stands out to me? This whole idea of having formal training in activism. Like, is it essential? Is it just a nice thing to have? Could it actually be, a bad thing? Like, it could get in the way of that grassroots energy that's always been so important for social movements.
Ooh, that is a great question. I mean, it really gets to the heart of how activism is changing. How do we find the right balance between, having experts and making careful plans on one hand, and that passion and drive that, make these movements happen on the other?
Yeah, it's a tough one. No easy answers. And, what about other fields? Could this model work for other types of activism
Yeah.
in other countries? What are the good things and the bad things about that?
Yeah. I mean, we'd love to know what you think.
These are questions we all need to be thinking about.
It's like we're at this crossroads in how we think about activism. And this whole thing that's going on in Pakistan, well, it's like this sneak peek into one possible future.
Yeah.
A future where we use knowledge, where we work together, and where everyone has a seat at the table.
Yeah.
A future where we're all working together and, using all the tools that are out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really amazing.
It's exciting. You know what else is really encouraging about climate action skills? It's not just training people, they're building a network. Yeah, it's like they're connecting all these graduates with each other
Cool.
and then with mentors and people they could work with.
Oh, wow. So it's like it's not just giving them the knowledge and skills.
Right.
It's like giving them that support system, a community
Yeah, exactly.
where they can, bounce ideas off each other, learn from what everyone else is doing, and, really have a bigger impact.
Exactly. And that's what makes this whole initiative so promising.
Yeah.
It's not just about what one person can do, it's about building a movement.
Right. It's like they're creating this new generation of climate leaders who are all connected and, supported and ready to actually tackle these challenges.
Yeah, and hopefully inspire others to do the same thing
Yeah.
in Pakistan and all over the world.
This has been such a cool look into how climate activism is evolving.
Yeah.
It's really clear that there's something really special happening over there in Pakistan.
It is. Climate action skills is showing us that, if you want to make activism effective, you can do it with this, structured educational approach. Yeah. Especially if you're also building a community and making sure everyone can participate.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the big takeaway today? What's that one question we want to leave everyone thinking about?
I think the thing that really stands out to me is this idea of formal training in activism.
Yeah.
And it makes you ask, could this be the key? Could this model of training and, community building and making education accessible, could that be how we create a new era of activism that actually gets stuff done? And not just for climate change, for everything, for all the big problems we need to solve.
That is a really powerful question. It makes us rethink how we do activism.
Yeah.
Should we be more organized? Should we have more of a plan?
It's not easy figuring that out.
No.
But it reminds us that even when things seem really, really hard,
Yeah.
there's always hope.
Yeah.
There are always new ideas out there. And there are always people and groups out there who are trying to make the world better.
So to everyone listening, we'll leave you with this. What role do you see yourself playing in building this better future? How are you going to use your own skills and your knowledge and what you're passionate about to really make a difference?
Never stop learning, never stop asking questions, and, never stop pushing for change.
Yeah.
The world needs what you have to offer.
I love that. Could have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everybody. Until next time.